Hello, everyone, welcome back to the channel. A new wave of urgency and anxiety has spread through Moscow as reports confirm that Ukraine has severed Russia's last remaining land routes. This development is being described as a critical turning point, one that could significantly alter the balance of operations and intensify pressure on Russian leadership. Land routes are the arteries of any military campaign. They allow the steady movement of troops, heavy equipment, fuel, ammunition, food, and medical supplies. When these routes are cut, forces on the other side begin to feel the strain almost immediately. Ukraine's actions appear deliberate and carefully timed. By focusing on the last usable land routes, the aim is not just disruption, but isolation. This is a strategy designed to reduce Russia's freedom of movement and limit its ability to respond effectively. The reaction in Moscow has reportedly been swift and tense. Emergency discussions, rapid assessments, and urgent planning sessions are said to be underway as officials try to grasp the full implications of the situation. Severing the final land routes creates a complex challenge. Without reliable ground connections, resupply becomes slower, more dangerous, and far less predictable. Air and sea alternatives, if available, are limited and vulnerable. For Russian forces affected by these cuts, uncertainty is now a constant companion. Commanders must account for dwindling supplies and unpredictable delivery schedules. Every operation must be reconsidered. Fuel shortages can quickly paralyze movement. Vehicles that cannot be refueled become stationary targets. Generators that power communications and defenses begin to fall silent. Ammunition shortages force difficult choices. Units may conserve firepower, reducing their ability to respond to attacks or hold positions under pressure. Food and medical supplies are just as critical. Extended disruptions can weaken morale, increase fatigue, and raise casualty risks. This is why cutting land routes has such a powerful effect. It does not require direct confrontation with every unit. Instead, it undermines the system that supports them all. In Moscow, this reality is fueling panic. Panic does not necessarily mean chaos, but it does mean urgency. Decisions that once had time for deliberation must now be made quickly. Public statements may seek to project calm and control. Behind the scenes, however, the pressure is intense. Questions are being asked about preparedness. Were these routes adequately protected? Were vulnerabilities underestimated? Could this have been prevented? Each question adds to the strain on leadership and planners. Ukraine's strategy reflects a broader understanding of modern conflict. Wars are no longer decided solely by battlefield clashes. Logistics, mobility, and sustainability are equally decisive. By severing Russia's last land routes, Ukraine has targeted the foundation of operational capability. This move also sends a message. It signals that no critical link is beyond reach and that adaptation is required at every level. For Russian forces, adaptation is now unavoidable. Units may need to consolidate positions, reduce operational tempo, or withdraw from exposed areas. None of these options are ideal. Each carries risks and potential political consequences. Withdrawal can be perceived as weakness. Consolidation can create new vulnerabilities. Reduced tempo can allow the opponent to seize initiative. This is the dilemma created by logistical isolation. The psychological impact should not be underestimated. Knowing that escape routes and supply lines are gone can erode confidence rapidly. Soldiers begin to feel cut off, not just physically, but emotionally. Trust in the system that supports them is tested. At higher levels, political leaders must consider how this situation affects broader objectives. Military setbacks often translate into political pressure, both domestically and internationally. International observers are watching closely. The ability to sustain operations under logistical stress is a key indicator of long-term viability. Ukraine's allies may interpret these developments as evidence that targeted strikes can yield significant strategic returns. This could influence future support decisions, including the type and scale of assistance provided. At the same time, there are humanitarian considerations. Land routes often serve civilian populations as well. Their loss can disrupt aid delivery, evacuations, and daily life. This adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Weather and terrain further complicate matters. Seasonal changes can make alternative routes impassable or even more dangerous. Longer detours increase fuel consumption and vehicle wear. They also increase exposure to surveillance and attack. Every additional kilometer traveled under these conditions adds risk. Medical logistics are particularly sensitive. Delays in evacuation or treatment can have serious consequences for wounded personnel. Communications infrastructure also depends on reliable logistics. Power generators require fuel. Repair teams require access. As days pass, the cumulative effects become more severe. What begins as a disruption can escalate into an operational crisis. History provides many examples of armies struggling or failing due to logistical breakdowns. This situation echoes those lessons. Ukraine's approach fits within this historical pattern, updated with modern intelligence and precision capabilities. Precision strikes allow critical nodes to be targeted without the need for massive force. This maximizes impact while minimizing exposure. For Russia, defending every land route across vast territory is a monumental challenge. Resources are limited and priorities must be set. This inevitably leaves gaps. Ukraine's success suggests those gaps have been identified and exploited. The narrative of panic in Moscow also affects perception. Perception matters in conflict. It shapes morale, public opinion, and diplomatic dynamics. For Russian citizens, reports of severed land routes may raise concerns about the war's direction and cost. For Ukrainian citizens, it may reinforce a sense of resilience and strategic effectiveness. Economic impacts are also significant. Disrupted logistics affect not only military operations but also local economies. Supply chains overlap. When military routes are cut, civilian goods can be delayed or diverted. Prices may rise, shortages may appear, daily life becomes more difficult in affected regions. Military engineers face a race against time. Repairing or replacing land routes under threat is extremely dangerous. Any repair effort becomes a target. Protecting it requires additional resources, further stretching capabilities. Temporary solutions such as makeshift crossings or ferries may be attempted, but these are limited in capacity and highly vulnerable. Air transport can supplement supplies, but it cannot fully replace ground routes for heavy equipment and large volumes. Sea routes, where available, face their own risks and limitations. This means that even with alternatives, efficiency is reduced. Ukraine's ability to coordinate strikes suggests effective intelligence sharing and command control. Severing multiple routes compounds the effect. Even if one is restored, others may remain unusable. This reduces redundancy and resilience. Russia may attempt to establish new corridors, but doing so under pressure is difficult and time-consuming. Time is a critical factor. Every day without reliable land routes increases strain. As conditions evolve, strategic choices become more constrained. Will Russia prioritize restoring routes at all costs, potentially exposing forces elsewhere? Will it adjust objectives to align with reduced logistical capacity? Will it escalate in other domains to compensate? Each option carries risks and consequences. Ukraine, meanwhile, must decide how to build on this advantage. Sustaining pressure requires resources and careful planning. Overextension carries its own dangers. The coming period will test both sides' adaptability. Military analysts will closely study these developments, extracting lessons about infrastructure protection and targeting. One lesson already stands out. Physical routes remain critical, even in an era of advanced technology. When they are cut, the effects ripple through every aspect of operations. As more information becomes available, the full extent of the damage will become clearer. Satellite imagery, official briefings, and field reports will add detail and context, but the central fact remains: Russia's last land routes have been severed, and Moscow is reacting with urgency. The word panic captures the sudden shift from confidence to concern. It reflects a recognition that the situation has fundamentally changed. Whether this becomes a temporary disruption or a lasting strategic setback depends on what happens next. For now, the initiative appears to have shifted. For soldiers on the ground, the stakes are immediate and personal. For leaders in Moscow and Kiev, the stakes are strategic and political. For the wider world, this is another reminder of how decisive logistics can be. Wars are not won by firepower alone. They are sustained by movement, supply, and connection. When those connections are broken, even powerful forces can be brought under pressure. Ukraine's actions have highlighted that reality with striking clarity. As events continue to unfold, attention will focus on responses, adaptations, and consequences. Because when the last land routes are cut, the conflict enters a new and uncertain phase. And in that phase, every decision carries even greater weight.